for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, welcome. Howdy. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you. You can see me. And I won't say that it's good for you to see me because I'm a realist. So here we are. Welcome to MBRR Media. Looking forward to hearing from you guys as we cover this story. Um, it's a day off for me. The company that I work for gives us the day before the 4th off, especially on weekends. So with pay, and I'm thankful for that. But today is not about the 4th of July. It's not about the 250th anniversary of the uh, Empire of the United States. We'll be doing a show about that tomorrow. But today is going to be about Jami Lyle Lucas. But before we get to that, I want to give a big shout out to my in memoriam show producer, Ryan Schultz. And thank you so much to him and his family for all of their support and what they've done to help keep things going here. His mom, Betty, in particular, is just an absolutely fabulous woman, and we need about 75 million more of her in this country. It would be amazing to have that many more people in the world. But thank you to Ryan and his family for what they've done. Today's show, I don't like calling it a show. It makes it seem performative, right? So, but today's episode is going to be focusing on the fact that it's 6 years ago today that Jami Lyle Lucas from Cass County, Minnesota, went missing in an interaction with law enforcement, and he has never been seen since. And if you've been paying attention to the storyline with this, you know that the last people to see Jami alive, confirmed last people to see Jami alive, in particular was one Deputy Donner from Cass County, and that's the same Deputy Donner who shot and killed, excuse the terminology, but ended the life of James Wayas back in November of last year. And if you've been paying attention to the James Wayas story and the Cass County Sheriff's Office content that we've been doing here, and when I say we, I'm referring to my researcher Natalie. She does so much work. It's just hours after hours after hours, file after file after file, dig after dig after dig, and she's the one that's been helping me pull together threads on numerous stories that I'm covering. And so when I say we, I'm referring to the work that she does. This might be my platform. MBRR Media might be me. MBRR is certainly a work that I have been doing almost single-handedly from day one. But Natalie is just this volunteer researcher. And when I say just, I don't mean that in a diminutive way. She has made the job much easier. And so we're going to cover some reports from the day that Jami went missing, but our focus isn't going to be just on the actions of law enforcement, the Cass County Sheriff's Office in particular in this situation. Our focus is going to be on the fact that it's been 6 years, and outside of the search that the friend of the show, Tonda, really put pressure on the Cass County Sheriff's Office to conduct, along with, the BCA was in on that as well. That's the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. So if you're watching this in another state, your state has a Bureau of Criminal Apprehension or Bureau of Investigation or something like that. It's kind of like your state's version of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So Tonda has just been active behind the scenes and publicly, just pulling threads and needling and just staying on the sheriff's office there, begging them to just do your job, do your job, do your job. And she finally was able to get them to pull the trigger, no pun intended, it's what I used, on a search back in May, which of course everybody knew was going to produce nothing. Everybody knew that. Jamie's mother, Sandy, he has nieces that were involved, other family members. There were some First Nations individuals that came down and took part in the search. And there were some bones found, and I knew when I saw the bones, the pictures and the images, when I saw them, that they were animal bones, and that's now been confirmed. Those were, native animal species that were found in the woods, which really goes to show that no effort was put into finding Jamie immediately after he disappeared on the evening of July 3rd. When Deputy Donner, and we have video of it, and we're going to be doing the next episode in this playlist, and the series is going to be full video breakdown of Deputy Donner and Deputy Chino's body cam footage. I know I keep promising that, but other things have arisen, not that are more important, but are more time sensitive. And when we look at the fact that Deputy Donner pulled his handgun, chasing a man through very thick, you look in your state, wherever you are, if you happen to be in a Midwestern state, upper Midwestern state, or anywhere where there's a decent amount of rainfall this time of year, along with the heat, you have a massive amount of overgrowth, especially in unmaintained woodlands, like what Jamie disappeared in. And Deputy Donner pulled his gun and was running helter-skelter through the undergrowth, chasing someone who was not a threat. Jamie posed no physical threat to the deputy, and really didn't have a history, even though his criminal career, he has what, in the law enforcement world, what they refer to as a jacket, a folder. He had an extensive jacket, but there was nothing in there that showed he was a danger or threat to law enforcement. And here, Deputy Donner is chasing him with his firearm through the woods. Well, for a little bit before his fat, out of shape body got to the point where he couldn't chase anymore, and then they gave up. And that the fact that he pulled a firearm is very important, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. So the story goes that now Sheriff Brian Welk, who was then a deputy 6 years ago, he identified Jamie riding a motorcycle along the highway and was headed in the opposite direction of Jamie. So they passed each other on the road. And he identified him as he's going by, and he knew right away it was Jamie. I knew Jamie. I've known him a long time, and I knew it was Jamie, and I knew that he didn't have a license. That was the statement. So he called other deputies in because he couldn't get turned around because he was in a sheriff's office truck. He wasn't alone, by the way. We'll get to that too. And he pulling a boat because he was headed to one of the nearby large lakes in Cass County to do boat patrol for fireworks that night. So basically, he was going out to patrol the lake and was going to be looking for people that he could charge for having fireworks. Yay, freedom. Woohoo! Here in the United States, we celebrate our freedom by looking for people to write tickets for celebrating freedom with fireworks. Yay, freedom. Asinine, ridiculous nature of the laws in this country and the fact that law enforcement. Yeah, anyway. I don't disagree, Nathan Lurie. Walls is milquetoast, but anyway, he's not subject to this particular breakdown. And so other deputies give chase, is Deputy Chino, and ultimately they follow him down Washburn Road, and Jami ditches his motorcycle. This is all speculation, by the way, because Cass County's body cam and dash cam system miraculously went on the fritz immediately preceding this. I don't blame you, Nathan. I'm mad about it too, but their entire body cam and dash cam system just magically went on the fritz, and they lost all dash cam and body. Sorry, flies are in here today in the studio. The flies do not know what to do with me being here on a Friday. Went on fritz, and now they couldn't recall any video from that night except for some brief video from the body cam of these two deputies in the woods. That's it. Miraculously. Just strangely. And we're going to be covering the history of Cass County and their implementation of dash cams and body cams, by the way. That's a big part of the story. So they give chase. They never find him. They call in a dog. The dog never shows up, but doesn't get called off. They give up the chase. They decide they're going to do what they call a long form in the report. They're going to do a long form report for charging on him, on Jami. And that's the end of it. And a short time later, the sheriff at the time, and his name doesn't matter anymore, the sheriff at the time says to some people, Jami's gone missing. He just disappeared. I think he took off to Missouri to not get caught. No calls to his mother, no calls to his children, no calls to his friends, anybody else in his family, no call to his baby mama, who he was having, shock of all shocks, somebody with a criminal history is having baby mama drama, right? Let's just be frank. And I'm saying this to be funny, because if even people with a record will laugh, because they know they tend to have a lot of baby mama drama. And Ashley, Jami's now, was having some relationships with some other family members of Jami. So there's all of this drama, right? And he's had no contact now with his kids. He just takes off and goes to live with his brother in Missouri and doesn't tell anybody. And his brother doesn't tell anybody. That's the sheriff's speculation. And we haven't seen him or heard from him since. And the timeline of this is interesting, to say the least, because now we get this conflicting report that an anonymous call came in to report that Jami had drugs on him. And that's why they followed him. But first, it was Brian Welk who called Jami in to his fellow deputies. So you notice the conundrum here is like, what really happened to Jami? What really happened? Look, I'm not saying that I know for a fact that Jami didn't hurt himself in the woods, crawl away and pass away in the woods somewhere. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that Somebody else didn't get to Jami. Maybe Jami did have drugs on him, and somebody else found out, and they found Jami in the woods, and they took him out and they took his drugs. Or maybe somebody he had a beef with over drugs found him and did something with him. I'm not saying I know that. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that the last people to see him alive might be the same people who made him not alive anymore. I'm not saying that Deputy Donner and Deputy Chino had anything to do with Jami's disappearance. I'm not saying that. Do I have my suspicions that somebody in the sheriff's office knows about and was involved in Jami's disappearance? You're damn right I do. Because there's just so much about this case that doesn't add up. Just so much. And frankly, to be brutally honest, criminals do criminal things, but do they deserve to be, ignored? Do they deserve to be just left out in the woods suffering somewhere if they did fall and hurt themselves? And God forbid, did somebody in the sheriff's office accidentally do something to Jami and then they just let him suffer and die? I don't know. But would you want, if that was your loved one, whether they had a criminal history or not, would you want that person to be left in the woods and ignored? No real searches conducted? I mean, honestly, because that's what happened. At 8:30 at night, the whole incident started at 8:30 at night, folks, 8:30. And they concluded their involvement in the incident at 9:25:45. So 9:25, almost 9:26 in the evening. Why? What would be the reason for that? Why such a short amount of time? And we all know, we all know for a fact that law enforcement does treat people with criminal histories like second-class citizens. It's a fact. It's an absolute 100% fact. They do not invest in individuals with criminal histories as if they're human beings. And they play the FAFO game with them all the time. Oh, you FA'd, now you FO'd. Right? And could that possibly be what they thought when Jami disappeared in the woods? Now we're going to take a look here at and this is a report from primary deputy on the scene, report by Nick Chiono, or I don't know how he says his last name, Chiono. On 7/3/2020, at approximately 2025 hours, yada 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 was patrolling the outing area. That's a little township, little town. Deputies observed, and this would be Welk he's referring to, observed a male riding a maroon motorcycle northbound on Highway 6 through Outing. Lieutenant Welk stated that he knew his name to be Jami Lyle Lucas. And by the way, they never get Jami's name spelled right in an official report, which if you know anything about report writing, it's absolutely imperative that you get spellings right. And they put no effort into that here. So, well, yada yada through it. And he knew him to not have a valid license. Deputies, now he's referring to himself, attempted to catch up to Lucas northbound on State Highway 6. I was several groups of vehicles behind. I activated my lights and attempted to catch up to the bike. Lucas's driving status was confirmed through dispatch as revoked. I could see the motorcycle in the distance and observed that the motorcycle was not slowing down. I activated my siren and observed that the motorcycle still not slowing down. While attempting to catch up to the motorcycle, I observed the motorcycle turn westbound onto Eastburn Drive. I advised dispatch and continued to try and catch up. While searching for the vehicle, I observed the bike to be tipped on its side in the eastbound ditch and a male party in a white t-shirt running in the woods. I announced my presence and ordered Lucas to stop, but he did not comply. Other deputies arrived on scene, and we could hear Lucas moving through the woods. Shortly after hearing Lucas in the woods, and pay very close attention to this part's very important. I copied traffic that Lucas in the woods. I could hear Deputy Donner just down the road giving loud verbal commands for Lucas to show his hands. I copied traffic that Lucas was at gunpoint. I continued into the woods and met with Deputy Donner. I was advised that Lucas continued to flee and refused to comply. After searching the area, it was decided that charges were to be long formed and Procopio's towing was contacted to tow the motorcycle. Yada, yada, yada. End of report. Now, the part that's important is what he said. I copied traffic that Lucas was at gunpoint. Right? This deputy annotates in his report that Lucas was at gunpoint. Now, his partner that day, Deputy Donner, was the one who had him at gunpoint, right? When you go back and watch the video, the very first video I did on this, at no point do we ever see Jami at gunpoint, but we do see Donner with his gun out. We absolutely do see Donner with his gun out in that video. And once again, we'll be breaking down both Deputy Chiono and Deputy Donner in their body cam video, full body cams that we have. The parts that didn't just mysteriously disappear. But here's Deputy Donner's report from that night. On yada, 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 copied radio traffic from Deputy Nick Chiono of a motorcycle that failed to stop and turned off of State Highway 6 onto Eastburn Drive. The driver, who was identified, once again, misspelling, crashed the motorcycle on the edge of the woods and fled into the woods on foot. I arrived on scene and started to set up a perimeter along Eastburn Drive. While proceeding back towards State Highway 6 on foot, I observed a male party running through the woods along Eastburn, wearing a white t-shirt. I gave Jami loud verbal commands for Jami to exit the woods with his hands up. Jami refused, turned away from me, and ran further into the woods. I followed Jami briefly into the woods and marked the location he was last seen with Cass County Dispatch via a 911 ping. While I was waiting for other units at the area he was last seen, it was determined the charges would be long formed, and I exited the woods. I returned to my patrol vehicle and assisted with the scene security while Procopio's towing was loading up the motorcycle. I cleared the area at 21:25 hours and took no further action. Did you see what's missing in this report? And this is very important. The primary deputy reported that he knew that Donner had Jami at gunpoint. He put it in his report, and it's true. He did have his gun out. Donner had his gun out. But did Donner put in his report anywhere that he had his firearm out? No, he did not. Folks, this is not simply an oops, I forgot. You don't oops, I forgot that I forgot, oops, I forgot I had my gun out. Oops. No, silly me. I guess I gotta be better about remembering when I pull my gun and when I don't pull my gun. Why would Donner not put in there anything about having his gun out? Agreed, Nathan. They are. Oh, a vast majority of them are. That's why I teach people back to blue until it happens to you. I wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports when I was working for the sheriff's office in Olmsted County in my almost 13 years with them. Hundreds of reports. You don't get to forget when you pull a weapon. You don't get to forget that. That's not something that you just go, oops. You don't oops that. Now, there again, am I implying that I know for a fact that Deputy Donner had something to do with the disappearance of Jami Lyle Lucas on July 3rd of 2020? I'm not saying that, but there's also something else that I want you to pay attention to. And we'll point it out here. The first deputy on scene wrote his report at 0:01 hours. So 1 minute after midnight on July 4th. That's pretty standard, probably night shift timing. So after all this event was done and everything was taken care of and the motorcycle was picked up by the towing company and whatnot, Donner finally got to a place where he could write his report. So he wrote his report at 1 minute after midnight on July 4th. Okay, you can see that right here. I don't know if you can see the cursor moving. See that right here. When did Deputy Donner write his report? Deputy Donner wrote his report at 5:29 in the morning on the 9th of July. Let's just give him credit for being busy on July 3rd. 8 freaking days he got away without writing a report. The man was involved in the chase where an individual disappeared and he pulled his firearm. He didn't write his report that shift. Now, I don't know anything about Cass County's report writing policy, but I do know a crap ton about report writing policy in the state of Minnesota for most agencies, and they almost all rely on Lexipol. Lexipol is a data sharing system whereby the state really kind of helps agencies build policy. And almost every single agency's report writing policy is a mirror image, a copy, a photocopy of the Lexipol suggestions for report writing policies and other policies, use of force policies, pursuit policies. And then they might tweak it a little bit for their individual agencies. This guy pulls his service weapon, chases a man through the woods. The man disappears, and Dave Donner doesn't write a report for 8 freaking days after he pulled his gun. Come on. Are you kidding me? 8 days this guy goes. 8 freaking days he goes without writing a report after he pulled a gun on a guy who was running from him on a motorcycle. He wasn't wanted for homicide. He wasn't wanted for being a PDF file. He wasn't wanted for a recent, essay. He didn't grape anybody. He hadn't just like gone in and shot up a school or a church. That's not what he did. He was alleged to be riding a motorcycle without a driver's license. Okay, that's not it. No violence in this situation. And he pulls a gun chasing this guy through the woods, and he doesn't write a report for 8 days, and he doesn't include in his report that he did pull his gun. And once again, unless you are the dumbest thing on 2 legs, you don't forget that you pulled a gun. So why wouldn't he include it? So let's take a look at our next report. Deputy Eric Elger, he wrote a report at 3:30 that afternoon of the 4th. Because he was involved. So that was still within 24 hours of the event. What's our next report? Oh, This is our next report from Lieutenant, at the time, Lieutenant Brian Welk of the Cass County Sheriff's Office, serving under Sheriff Tom Birch, who's now the sheriff, by the way. Lieutenant Brian Welk didn't write a supplemental report on this incident until January 22nd of 2021. 6 freaking months after the event that he initiated. You just keep that in mind. Lieutenant Brian Welk initiated the pursuit by calling in Jami, stating he knew he didn't have a license. He recognized him from the past, and he didn't write a report. What on God's green earth? This isn't some Joe Blow schmo who happened to be just innocently minding his own business, driving down the road and said, hey, that's my neighbor, Jami. I know that he doesn't have a license, and I know he doesn't have a motorcycle endorsement, so I should call law enforcement and let them know. This jackass he's a cop. He's law enforcement. He's post-licensed in the state of Minnesota, acting in his official capacity as a lieutenant. That's a senior supervisory position in any agency. As a lieutenant, he calls him in. He ends up on scene and doesn't write a report until January 22nd of 2021. What? I'm trying so hard to not cuss out this agency for this behavior. I really am. What I don't understand is that key individuals in this situation who should have been the most responsible, who should have been the ones held to the highest account, like a supervisor, a lieutenant, not a sergeant, a lieutenant, probably a senior man on the shift that night. The sergeants would have answered to him. The lieutenant couldn't write a report on time. So what is, and by the way, Welk looks like the man has used civil asset forfeiture to confiscate all the donuts from all of the bakeries and all of the gas stations in Cass County. I mean, without a doubt. The man walks by fried food at a fair, and the fried food vendor gets scared. You could say what you want. I believe in fat shaming cops. I really do. And here's why. Out of shape cops are the most likely to use excessive and unauthorized force because they cannot, I repeat, cannot engage in a way that is safe for their own health for a protracted period of time. They give up chases. They use their vehicles in wrong ways. They will pull their gun and use it if there is a physical altercation, even if it doesn't need to rise to the use of lethal force. They use way more force than officers, cops, deputies that are physically fit and ready to do the job. So anyway, he writes this report 6 months later. While parked at a junction of Cass County Road number 58 and State Highway 6 in Outing, I observed a lone white male driving a motorcycle, not wearing a helmet, headed northbound on State Highway 6. I immediately identified the male as Jami Lyle Lucas. I knew from previous contact and dealings with Mr. Lucas who Mr. Lucas was. Mr. Lucas and I used to live in the same town, Remer, Minnesota, for a long period of time, where I would see him often. Due to traffic, I radioed other units in the area. Deputy, and he spells the deputy's name wrong, Nick Chino. That's why I kept calling him Chino. It's Chiono. Deputy Nick Chiono was closer and acknowledged my radio transmission, and I then heard radio traffic that he was not stopping, followed by he turned down the Eastburn Road. Mr. Lucas then ditched his Honda motorcycle, fleeing into the wooded area to the south. Deputy Chino, I'm just reading his report verbatim now, saw Mr. Lucas running, gave loud verbal commands, but kept running. They searched the area and were not able to locate him. I located Mr. Lucas's girlfriend, identified as Ashley Joyce Anderson, down the road, or down the end of the Eastburn Road. She denied having contact with Mr. Lucas. I checked her vehicle, and he was not located. The next day, he was still not accounted for, and Ms. Anderson and Sandy Lucas, who is Jami Lucas's mother, stated he had not been seen. We gathered a large group of officers and searched the area on foot. The terrain was real rugged, and we were not able to find Mr. Lucas. To date, 1/22/21, it is not known where Mr. Lucas is and is still listed as a missing person with Cass County Sheriff's Office, listed at NCIC computer. End of report. This is the fucking lieutenant, folks. He covered two events separated by a decent amount of time with one supplemental supporting report 6 months after the event. The two events. The first event that he reported Jami and was on scene. And then a couple of days later, they gathered a large body of deputies and searched, and they found nothing. And he didn't bother to write a report for 6 months. 6 months. The lieutenant. And there's something else missing in his report. Hey, Jen, thanks for being here. By the way, if you're watching, please hit the like. Share this out, hit the thumbs up, and then come back afterwards and hit the hype. Use that hype button, man. The hype button is great, pushes out in the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so. And if you haven't become a channel member yet, and you like what I do here, no matter what it is I'm doing at the time, consider being a channel member. The support really helps. And thanks to all the channel members, like Jen's a moderator, so thank you, Jen, for being a moderator. But channel members, big shout out to you guys, by the way, for what you guys do every month. Just reliable. You just keep the channel going. You keep the internet paid for, at the very, very least. But you have a lieutenant who's now the sheriff, the man in charge of the shift, didn't write a report for 6 months. How in the blue blazes is that right? And like I said, there's something else missing from his report. Now, this is really important. So this is a clip from the Minnesota Star Trib, the Minnesota Communist, Minnesota Red Star. Only when Minnesota Star Tribune recently began looking into the case did Lucas's family and friends learn that a sixth deputy was at the scene that night. Jami Lucas's cousin, Deputy Aaron Ammerman. Say what now? Jami's cousin was on scene? And nobody has reported this. Ammerman never filed a report like the other deputies on the scene. Welk said he was riding an Ammerman squad with the boat on the hitch when they both saw Lucas on the motorcycle. They radioed to other deputies to pull Lucas over. Ammerman's presence surprised Sandy Lucas, Jami's mom, and God bless this woman, she has got a warrior's heart, who said she has little trust in him or Welk. But Ammerman brushes off those concerns. I didn't do anything in that call, Ammerman said in an interview. By the time we got there, he was already gone in the woods. We didn't stay there the whole time because we had to be out on the water for fireworks display that night. Okay, for the display. I'm sorry. I implied that they were out looking to catch people, but that's what they do. They're cops. They're out looking to catch people. He added, it's a family of conspiracy people. You want to know why they might think there's a conspiracy going on here, buddy? Because nobody mentioned that you were in the vehicle. And your argument is, I didn't do anything. Aren't you the same people that mock criminals when they get hurt, who scream out, I didn't do nothing? You guys make memes about that crap all the time. I didn't do nothing. So you didn't do nothing, so you didn't need to write a report? I'm sorry, buddy. You're on scene. I don't care if it's one paragraph. I was driving, and my lieutenant was sitting with me, and we did arrive on scene. I took no action. End of report. And why did it take months? Now, there's something else going on, by the way. Deputy Aaron Ammerman, it's okay, Aaron. Deputy Ammerman is now running for sheriff in Cass County. And there's a lot more to that story as well. But get this. No report. He's running for sheriff, and he's running for sheriff against the very large and obese, out of shape, shouldn't be sheriff for anybody, Brian Welk. They're supposed to... Why? And if you haven't heard the news, the county attorney, who has done everything he can to stall and delay the reports and the release of information and everything about this case. And I'm sorry, this is a case. Jamie's dead. We're not looking for a fugitive anymore. We're looking for a deceased individual who, in all likelihood, met with foul play that night. Somehow, some way, some shape, some form. This poor kid because I'm a lot older than him. This poor kid met with foul play that night. And everybody involved that should have known better screwed up just at the level. If you can screw up your report writing, if you can forget to put in your report 8 days later that you pulled your gun, if your lieutenant isn't aware and can include that in his report, that he writes 6 months after the fact, and he doesn't include that he was riding with another deputy by name, once again, standard operating procedure in a report should be that you name everybody who ended up involved. Even if they poked their head into the scene for a second and said, hey guys, how's it going? Need anything? Nope. Okay, I'm out. Bounce. Nope, none of that. Why would anybody okay Deputy Ammerman not writing a report for that? So all this cover-up going on. Now Ammerman's running for sheriff against the sheriff that he was with that night, who was a lieutenant that night. He's running against Welk. And they put him out on administrative leave, telling him he wasn't allowed to run for sheriff. So he could choose to run for sheriff or he could have his job back. And the county board, to their credit, said, whoa. We can't back this up. If we back this up, and these are their words, if we back this up, it's going to look bad because we have a really good relationship with Sheriff Welk. So because they have a good relationship with Sheriff Welk, they couldn't back up Aaron Ammerman. They couldn't back him up not being allowed to work and being put on administrative leave based on a report filed by the county attorney, who alleges that he heard Ammerman say negative things about Welk as he's telling his fellow staff that he's running going to be running for sheriff. And so they decided to use that as a policy violation to try and terminate, put him out on paid administrative leave in an attempt to basically intimidate him or terminate him and discredit him. And the county board wouldn't back it up. So now Ammerman's back on the job. But I just got a report today that there might be some other things going on that are a little shady. And I don't care if Cass County hears about this, because I've told everybody, every law enforcement agency in the state of Minnesota knows for a fact that Cass County Sheriff's Office is one of the most corrupt agencies in the state of Minnesota, if not the most corrupt. And you can see that just in the fact that of the coverage that I've done on the shooting of James Wayas. Clean shoot, ended in a huge crime. Hey, Greg, Greg, good to see you. Thanks for being here. So you've got this nepotistic corruption going on. And you know who still doesn't have any answers about their loved one? Sandy Lucas has no answers about her son. Jamie's kids don't have any answers. Jamie's nieces don't have any answers. And Jamie's nieces were at the search that took place back in May. And they made contact with my researcher, Natalie. And we'd love to talk to them. We'd love to have them on the show to talk about why they're invested in this so much, because nobody believes anything. And Aaron Ammerman has the balls to say they're a family of conspiracy people. Yeah, because Cass County has given these people a reason to believe there's a conspiracy. And you want to know what? Everybody who's paying attention now believes there's a conspiracy. So you can label people conspiracy people or conspiracy theorists, because every time somebody gets labeled a conspiracy person or a conspiracy theorist, and what ends up happening, they end up being proven right. It looks like a conspiracy because it looks like a conspiracy to cover something up. The video of the dash cams and the body cams miraculously disappears and can't be recalled except for about 18 minutes between two deputies chasing the guy through the woods, and you never see the guy in the I've watched it. So I've watched it on slow motion. I've watched it on ultra slow motion. You never once see Jamie, but you see Donner with his gun out. That video we have, but we can't get any other video from that night because the system went on the fritz. Reports aren't written on time. Reports aren't written correctly. They can't even get Jamie's name spelled right. They don't mention the fact that Jamie's cousin, who is a cop, was in the vehicle that initiated the call on Jamie. Hey, Mismatch, thanks for stopping in. I hope you will subscribe if you haven't yet. This all looks like a conspiracy because you made it look like a conspiracy, folks. Cass County Sheriff's Office, now Sheriff Brian Welk, your people, you made this look like a conspiracy. You want to know why no one trusts you? Because you haven't given them a reason. Let's see, what's this last document say? This is just the towing report. Folks, it is hours away from the official disappearance time of Jami Lyle Lucas 6 years ago today, July 3rd. Hours away. And the Cass County Sheriff's Office has done the most keystone at the best. But the best would be to describe them as keystone cops. That's the very best you can describe them as. I want to, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll show you a little bit of the video that I'm referring to. I got so many videos, folks. Please bear with me. Yeah, here we go. Yep. And if you, while we're waiting, if you guys think I've forgotten about Blake and his family, you're incorrect. we I'm in constant contact with Blake and his family, especially his sister, Bailey. There we go. Hey, AVA, thanks for being here. The video's coming up, so just stand by. Here we go. We're going to share that. What's for dinner tonight? My son's birthday is this weekend, and so Mrs. Minnesota and I are going to go meet him for dinner. So, but you guys make sure you hit that like, join the channel as a member if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Here we go. This is just a little brief video that I put together. It's not edited. It's just cut out from the longer video. This is Donner's body cam, by the way.
Jami, come on now with your hands up! Hey, show me your hands! One at gunpoint, white shirt. Jami, show me your hands!
That's not gunpoint, folks. That's running, and I've got my gun out. But that is not one at gunpoint. One at gunpoint is I've got him, he's stopped, and I got my gun on him.
Now, you come home now! Jami, show me your hands! Do it now! Do not run from me! Straight ahead! Jami, put your hands up! Coming, Nick! Jami, stop running! "103, if you want to stop and go up by the road." I think he's trying to make it back to the road.
Yeah. Have I got the fridge stocked full of beer for tomorrow? Well, I don't. Well, you said bear, Greg. You asked if I had it stocked full of bear. No, I don't have the fridge stocked full of bear. I also don't have it stocked full of beer. which probably something I should remedy if I cared about myself. I'm going to be doing a stream tomorrow, somewhere 11:30 or so. We're breaking some big news on something we just found out about, another story we're covering. So, and it's going to be in keeping with the 4th of July in a way. Just me assuming if his finger is on the trigger and he trips, that would be a boo-boo. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's I do not understand the tactical wisdom of chasing somebody through the woods with your finger on the trigger, folks. You could say, well, it wasn't. He had it in the guard position, but that is asking for trouble, especially when you're as big as Donner is, and you could hear it as he was moving. He was getting wore out. But 6 years, folks. 6 freaking years that Jami's been gone. And that little 2 minutes and 5 seconds that we have is they're proof that they saw him. Look, we should be able to see what they see when they're on body camera. Okay, that's what I want people to understand. Most of the chest-mounted systems, Axon Body Cam, it's made by a taser same company that makes actual taser Axon. The body positioning is kind of mid-chest, right? And it's designed. It doesn't give you a head perspective, like a view on perspective, but it does give you a decent angle that you should be able to see. They've got a wide focus, as you could see there. It's very wide focus. If they could see Jami, we should be able to see Jami. But yet what we hear from Donner is a lot of running and yelling, Jami, stop, Jami, come out of the woods, Jami, stop running, yada, yada, yada. But we never actually see Jami. But Donner is still going to be credited with being the last person who saw Jami alive. By his own admission, he's the last person that saw Jami alive. And from there, the whole thing falls apart for Cass County. Reports don't add up. We have people that were on scene that should have been reported as being on scene. When we do our next video on this, I'm going to show you a very disturbing encounter that took place in the middle of this body cam footage that violates every single instinct that you would have if you were law enforcement involved with somebody running from you. And this situation took place. Trigger on, I think you mean finger on trigger before ready to pull is always a bad thing. Yeah, absolutely. I meant beer. I'm Scottish and very illiterate. That you don't get to use the I'm very illiterate excuse when you're Scottish. All right. You guys, the Scots produced Samuel Rutherford, one of the greatest theologians that's ever lived. And he wrote one of the greatest books that was ever written when it came to theology and politics, Lex Rex. So you don't get to use that excuse, Greg. So anyway, I don't have much more to say other than the next video is going to be very interesting for you guys. And I think it actually is even more disturbing than what we've talked about here today. And I am working on bringing Tonda on, and we're going to have Sandy on. And like I said, if you happen to see this and you are a family member of Jami's and you would like to talk to us, reach out to me at mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. You can find me as Todd Pearson on Facebook. Natalie is also on Facebook. You can reach out to her if you'd like to talk. Natalie will gladly field your questions, and she knows exactly what I'm looking for. And, not to maintain the discussion and to corral it or direct it towards a particular narrative. But if you have any information and you would like to talk about that, family member or not, and you can verify that information, especially like bring receipts for anything you might want to add, let us know. Reach out to us one more time. You can reach me at mbrrmedia@yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook as Todd Pearson. You can find Natalie as well. Natalie, and I would love to hear from you. This isn't an accusation that every deputy in Cass County is in on it. I tell people all the time, I am not a back the blue and I'm not an ACAB, but I'm going to tell you that, as one of the viewers stated earlier, far too many people in law enforcement are corrupt today. And it doesn't bring me joy, but it does give me hope that more and more people are seeing it. More and more people are starting to see it. And that does inspire some hope and encourages me. AVA says, not trying to defend the police here. I'm not familiar with the woods there, but are there any holes out there he could have fallen in? Just curious. There's AVA, there's always a chance for something like that. But it's not a situation where he would fall in a hole and be just completely untraceable after that. In a sense of, if they had done their job, if they had stopped being in police mode and then gone into let's actually do a search and rescue procedure in this moment, like they would have done for anybody else who went missing in that area that didn't have a criminal history like Jami. Even if he was dead at that time, they could have found him. The fact that nobody has they found nothing. Tonda found a scrap of a white t-shirt. But, white t-shirts in Minnesota are a dime a dozen. But they found nothing. No shoes, no jeans, no belt, no wallet, no boots, no nothing. Just no underwear, no elastic from underwear, no elastic from the socks, the elastic that helps keep socks up on your legs. The stuff that when it wears out, your socks slump and then you hate it, even though you push your socks down on your own anyway. Nothing. We found nothing. There's absolutely nothing to show for him. And a lot of covering up. Deputy not mentioning that he had his firearm out in his report. A lieutenant writing a report 6 months after the fact and not mentioning that another deputy was in the vehicle with him when they were on scene for the incident. Oh, and that family member happened to be, or that deputy happened to be a family member of Jami's, his cousin, who then immediately threw his entire family under the bus. No, they never have brought they never did bring a cadaver dog out, but until the search in May. And they didn't find anything. And anybody knows anything about cadaver dogs? Cadaver dogs can find very, very, very old bodies. And they can find bodies within hours of them passing away. That's how good these dogs are. We have no reports that actual dogs were ever used. In the last video that I did, I broke down what they called a search. So, exactly, it does make it even more suspicious. So, folks, I just wanted to put this out in honor of Jami. In all likelihood, Jami Lucas and I, even after I left the career field, was pushed out, I still don't find myself in a running in circles with people who have a storied and long criminal history. It's not who I am. Not because I think I'm superior to them. It's just I don't think the way a lot of those individuals do. There's a very small chance that Jami and I could have ever been friends. But he's a human being. And just because I can't relate to the lifestyle that Jami chose to live doesn't mean that Jami doesn't deserve to be treated like a human being. And at the very least, at the best, these Keystone cops have proven that they just don't care about Jami. In the same way that the video demonstrates that they didn't care about James Wayas. And didn't render any aid to him. Like we've seen hundreds of cops across the United States do when using lethal force. Cass County just doesn't care about people. All Cass County Sheriff's Office cares about is Cass County Sheriff's Office and maybe some of their buddies. I had somebody that I no longer associate with reached out to me and he goes, "Man, you got to lay off of Welk. I'm good friends with him, man, and he's one of the good ones. I talked to him. He wasn't even there that night. I just gave the report. And you know who you are if you still watch. You told me that Brian Welk told you that he wasn't even there that night, but his name is all over this. He was there. He initiated the call, apparently, allegedly. Because now we have information that says an anonymous call came in and reported Jami as having drugs on him. So which is it, Brian Welk? Did you get an anonymous call from somebody on your personal cell phone reporting that Jami had drugs, and they told you where he was going to be, and they told you what he was wearing, and they told you where he was riding, and they was on a motorcycle? And then you scrambled to come up with a story about how you could recognize him as he's gone by while you're sitting on an intersection and a junction and yada, yada, yada. So which is it? Because we have data that says an anonymous call came in. You never mentioned that, so I'm going to assume that your report is at least fairly accurate and that you're the one who called it in because you recognize Jami. But you covered up the fact that you had another deputy in the vehicle with you. And you know what's really interesting that night? You guys were on scene, but then you headed to a lake. You headed to a lake. You headed to a lake. You headed to one of the deepest lakes in the area. You headed to one of the deepest lakes in Cass County, if not the deepest lake in Cass County, and you were on it in the dark. In a boat. A lake that's at its deepest over 120 feet deep. I mean, we got to ask questions, right? Ask questions. That's all I'm doing. I'm just asking questions. Even threatened to arrest Jami's significant other if she didn't unask the area. And if you've ever been in the military, unask means get up and get out. Get up and get out. If you don't leave, I'm going to have you arrested. Somebody knows what happened to Jami. And I'm always going to start with the people who last saw him alive. And that starts chiefly with Deputy Donner. And from Deputy Donner I'd point right to Sheriff Brian Welk, and I'd be asking the really hard freaking questions. What's the truth about what happened? And instead of labeling people conspiracy theorists, Unleashed Theme Parks, thanks. I hope that you are a regular viewer. If you are, I'd love for you to subscribe and become a channel member. But thank you for being here, and thank you for watching. Hope you hit the like. And by the way, everybody, hit that bell icon. I'm getting a massive amount of reports from people that say they're not getting notifications and they're being unsubscribed. So if you're not getting notifications, make sure they didn't unsubscribe you. And if you aren't still subscribed, hit the bell thing and make sure. I don't know if it does anything anymore. Apparently it's supposed to, but I don't know if it does. But yeah, we're just asking questions. Sheriff Welk, we just want to know the truth, because Jami deserves it, because he's a human being. And just because you may not like to hang out with criminals, and just because you think criminals deserve to be locked up, doesn't mean they deserve to be ignored when they go missing and have false narratives built that they ran off and just completely abandoned their entire family for 6 years without a word. A man who loved his kids and would have done anything for them, according to every person who knew him. A man who loved his kids so much that he would do anything for them, including tolerating his significant other having an affair with his nephew just to keep those kids in his life. That's how tolerant this kid was. And I'm supposed to believe that he just up and vanished on the night of July 3rd into the woods of Cass County, Minnesota, to run off to Missouri to go hide, to not have to deal with a warrant or a probation violation. Just asking questions. I hope you all have a good day. Be looking for the stream tomorrow. We got some developing news on the story that I've been covering for the last few weeks. Some very big developing news. And I will be leading into that story with my thoughts on celebrating July 4th here in the empire of the United States. So I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I will see all of you on the next video. Until then, fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at